Hey everyone, Alex Tardy with Weather Echo. Hope you had a great Christmas and looking forward to the new year. We've got a new weather insight for you. More precipitation for California, everywhere, especially Southern California. I know areas in Southern California were hit really hard, especially Christmas Eve. We saw 6 to 7 inches of rain on the dry side of the San Gabriel Mountains on Christmas Eve in one day, the Wrightwood area. We saw a foot of rain on the wet side just on Christmas Eve. So some really significant flooding in Wrightwood. More rain in these saturated sensitive areas. Let's take a look at things. Okay, this is a satellite image of where the moisture is coming from. So the yellow and even the red, that's deep tropical moisture. So being forced up with an old storm system that was left behind in the Pacific. Now, before we had a similar situation and a system in the Pacific, but that system in the Pacific is far away. You can see it stretching from Hawaii up into British Columbia. The arrows pointed to the rain and the moisture surge from the tropics. It's going to move directly up into Southern California on New Year's Eve and January 1st. So we are getting a very warm tropical atmospheric river. Okay, here's the summary. Precipitation New Year's Eve will be widespread, mostly light. Then we'll see heavy at times on New Year's Day. This is an atmospheric river coming from the tropics in an old storm system left behind in the Pacific from our recent active weather around Christmas. Now, unfortunately, high snow levels above 8,000 feet, probably at times around 10,000 feet because of the tropical nature. It's going to take some time for the snow levels to come down. Heavy rain in areas that the ground is saturated and areas that experienced excessive rainfall on Christmas Eve. And that's largely Southern California, but all areas in California will see rain. The Pacific storm, the colder part of the storm, it's going to take a while to come down. And that's similar to our last event on Christmas. We don't see the cold air coming in from that Pacific storm, the atmosphere getting colder between the 4th and 6th, and that will also be accompanied by additional precipitation. So for most areas, 1 to 3 inches of precipitation through January 2nd alone, with localized amounts over 3 inches. Now that's even some of our inland valley areas could see over 3 inches, but certainly our mountains 3 to 5 inches in Southern California, with locally even more. This is what I mean. So this is a computer model prediction through January 2nd. This was issued today, December 30th. You can see I zoomed up for you as well so you can focus on Southern California where some of that really heavy precipitation, those very large amounts you see on here over 5 inches in the San Gabriel, San Bernardino Mountains, and even San Jacinto Mountains, and maybe even Palomar Mountain in San Diego County. If you look on the left, though, it's not just Southern California. Sierra Nevada gets the same moisture all the way through January 2nd. And even coastal California sees some areas of heavy rain. So yes, this is very common to have orographic or upslope enhancement. But if you notice some of these bands of rain that come up, they're even heavy over the water, and then they get even heavier as they move over the mountain terrain. So coming directly from the south, you can see the wind flow of these precipitation bands coming up from the south. So unlike the last event that was focused over Ventura County and Santa Barbara County, this one's focused over LA, but also over San Bernardino, also over Riverside, and even parts of San Diego County and Orange County as shown here. So everything shifted a little bit to the east. This is the Pacific storm. It doesn't look like much. It's an old, warm core circulation, so not a lot of cold air with it at all, like we would see in some big storms. That cold air is still way up in the Gulf of Alaska. That's up here in the second L or upper level low pressure area. Now it's going to slide up from the south and then get absorbed eventually by New Year's Day and January 2nd as shown here. So the storm system in the North Pacific is acting to help draw and lift it up, but at this time they're completely separate. So this one's coming right out of the tropics from that leftover moisture in that area. So no cold air with this storm, very minimal as shown here. Okay, when do we get colder air? Well, we start to see that Pacific storm in the Gulf of Alaska slowly swing, and keyword is slowly, like the last event, slowly swing towards the west coast. It weakens a little bit by the time we get to January 3rd, so meaning not as cold. You can see the really cold air is anchored up in the Hudson Bay in eastern Canada by those darker purple colors. So by the new year, we see this storm here taking aim on central and northern California. Now, as far as the atmospheric river goes, moisture transported by wind and tropical nature. That's what atmospheric river is. It's a transport, and you can only transport something through wind energy. And in this case, it's coming directly from the south. Now, you can see there's another atmospheric river that I showed you earlier, but it's not a factor right now. This will move up New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, right along the California coast, with all the moisture out in front of it. Okay, as we get onto January 1st of the new year, all that moisture spreads south to north across all of California. You can see the other atmospheric river, the one with connections to Hawaii, is still separate. But by the time we get to the 1st and 2nd, especially on January 2nd, we start to see merger as the Pacific storm starts to catch up with this storm and they start to blend together. And you can see bands of atmospheric river activity still affecting areas on the 1st from Southern California, most significant, all the way up into the Sierra Nevada and Northern California. Okay, what about by the time we get to the 2nd and 3rd? Well, the atmospheric river starts to catch up. You can see the Pacific one meets up with some of this moisture and then it enhances. We see now a big area of red over the ocean, taking aim for Northern California and Oregon. And since this is slow moving, this upper level feature is not moving fast west to east. It's a broad circulation. We can see a new atmospheric river form, get stronger, and then really focus on central Northern California and wrap all the way up to Oregon and really a little bit into Washington as well on January 2nd. So slow moving, so it takes a while for any of that colder air with this surface and upper level low pressure area to even make it to California, so high snow levels. Okay, now when we get out towards January 4th, I said some of that would make it into Southern California, and that looks to be the case. Now the storm overall weakens, the atmospheric river weakens, the wind flow weakens, the cold air becomes less by the 4th and 5th, but some of that moisture gets pushed back into Central and even Southern California as shown here. Speaking of cold air, not much cold air with this. So believe it or not, the snow levels are determined by the cold air in the atmosphere, not by the temperature at ground level where we're standing, but by the atmosphere's temperature. So the atmosphere controls a lot of things, including the snow level. So the first low pressure area in the upper part of the atmosphere in January 1, very little cold air. So we're talking snow levels up around 9,000, maybe even at times 10,000 feet. And what we do is we look at the temperatures at about 10,000 feet and we can extrapolate the snow level. Now, if you look towards the right, by the time we get to January 5th and 6th, when that Pacific storm finally makes it onshore into northern central California, we finally see some colder air, that -3 Celsius. So temperatures at 10,000 feet drop into the 20s Fahrenheit. So it's going to take a while. So initially you can see even in the Sierra Nevada, snow levels are high, up around 9,000 feet on the left-hand side January 1 with that precipitation. But as we get between January 4th and towards the 6th, that period as the Pacific storm approaches, we can say we get down to -3, even -6 over Tahoe. So that brings your snow levels down to around 5,500 feet, maybe even 5,000 feet by January 6th over Tahoe. For Southern California, you can see we're still in a situation with snow levels at best getting down to about 7,000, 7,500 feet on January 6th. So it's all about the atmosphere and the timing of the storm. It's not about the temperature or necessarily the source, but in this case, the source initially is tropical, so very mild. You can feel those warm temperatures outside. And believe it or not, we're still experiencing Santa Ana wind in Southern California. And on top of that, in the mid and upper part of the atmosphere, we've already seen clouds, some light rain, and that tropical moisture, as I showed on the satellite, moving up from the south. So big changes going from bone dry Santa Ana winds to tropical moisture, and not just Southern California, spreading out across the whole state for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It's going to take a while to get that colder Pacific air in here and lower those snow levels early January. Hope you enjoyed this insight. More information is found on our blog. You can sign up for that blog. We've already posted about this storm on that blog, and you can learn more information on that. We'll post real time on X, and also we post on TikTok, and we put information on Instagram, and especially this type of information on YouTube. So check out weatherecho.com. Have a great and safe New Year's Eve, and Happy New Year to everyone, 2026.